Thank you. A couple of years ago, we commissioned the Big Oscar Acoustics Workplace Noise Survey, which gave us some truly fascinating statistics, including if you're a male millennial from London, you're around 30% more likely to resort to physical violence in the workplace as a result of excessive noise. This is around 40 times higher than the same person living in East Anglia. A lot's happened, though, in the last 2 years, so we thought we'd do another survey to find out what preparations are being made for the reconfiguration of workspace, also identifying what potential design challenges architects may face, and see how it will be able to adapt to the hybrid workplace of the future. In particular, focus on the acoustic quality of these reimagined workspaces and how this may impact employee welfare, as well as fit out limitations and adhering to new COVID-19 safety measures. And I'll be sort of putting some of these findings throughout the presentation as well. As before, please keep an eye out on my LinkedIn and Oscar Acoustics YouTube channels for the full and complete results. So unsurprisingly, JLL say that there was a sharp fall in leasing volumes last year, and although they remain subdued, they're seeing promising signs and expect a strong second half to the year. They say that offices will become more social, collaborative and tech-enabled to inspire employees and customers to occupy them. There's also a heightened focus on higher quality core product. According to JLL, the 3 priorities for employers are: define and develop your optimal hybrid working model, support the shift in working behaviour, and create a dynamic office layout that maximises for each person's contact whilst accommodating a variety of uses throughout the day. The new normal is an always-on operating model that will keep adapting. So how can acoustics help? Most offices are not set up to have multiple people with raised voices on Zoom calls, so naturally some are going to stay at home because it's easier or because they don't want to disturb others. This in turn can reduce the social and therefore collaborative elements though. There was a great piece in the Times a little while ago, and some may call it very hot news, where Tom Whipple interviews British designer Thomas Heatherwick. He was saying that middle-aged, comfortable people living in their home working suburbs bubble are getting a touch on the smug side, no longer having to smell the armpits of fellow tube travellers and dropping the kids off at school in their pants. The danger for smug middle-aged people is that if they think they don't need to come in, they become less relevant, he says. The pulse of organisations will be about the younger people who come in together and learn together and from each other. So when talking in an office space, how easy is it? Do you have to raise your voice on a call above the sonic battleground around you? It can be exhausting and stressful, just like the summer's day commute on the underground. It's just as bad, if not worse, to be sat amongst it whilst trying to concentrate on something else. Despite this, our survey says that just 9% of architects say acoustic design is given the attention it deserves, despite the health risks caused by excessive noise. Noise pollution is a serious problem. So the chief medical officer in England, who's a lot more famous than they were a couple of years ago, say that it's second only to air pollution in damaging public health, while the World Health Organization, WHO, highlights issues such as tinnitus, sleep disturbance, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, adverse birth outcomes and cognitive impairment in children, not to mention general stress. Almost half of architects, 42%, say clients aren't interested in the end user health despite offering guidance, which is short-sighted, as according to the HSE in 2019-20, stress, depression and anxiety accounted for 51% of all work-related ill health cases and 55% of all working days lost due to work-related ill health. And that's before you add in other risks that WHO listed out. And this tallies up nicely with the previous employee survey, with exactly the same percentage, 42%, saying that employers don't take it seriously. And 54% said their employer had taken no action to combat it. So what's the biggest issue when it comes to convincing a client to introduce acoustic products? 67% of architects cite small design budgets as their biggest design challenge to noise reduction in the workplace. But perhaps some are not looking at the complete picture. If you were to take the cost of preparation and decoration of a surface away from the cost of treating with an economical acoustic decorative spray instead, it starts to put things in perspective, especially when taking into consideration the benefits and savings in reducing employee sick time. And it's not just for decoration and acoustics, it's pretty forgiving and allows you to refurbish old surfaces like concrete and rough plaster as well. So inadequate budgets and inflexible existing finishes are stated as design challenges faced by 40% of architects. Cementitious fire-coated beams are a common one, as they're usually applied, knowing they'd be hidden behind a suspended ceiling and not left as a finish. The good news is that the Sonar Spray is the only acoustic system to have been assessed by UL, the US testing body, as suitable for use on a cementitious fire spray. So it's ideal for refreshing and acoustically treating at the same time. Intumescent paint are also a common one, shown here in black at Gensler's London office on the beams there. So we spray up to the steel, neatly edge the material, and then lever it back in a V shape. The Sonar Spray is superb in a fire, so leaving it away allows the flame to get to the intumescent so that it can do its job. It needs to char. And well, here's a closer look, the white Sonar Spray up against the black beam there. Of course, social distancing is also a concern, but many offices don't lend themselves to easy reconfiguration due to partition walls surrounded by tile ceiling grids. Nearly a third of architects, 29%, state that limited space is the main preventative to social distancing. Some might argue that there's no better separation than a wall, but this is only an option where space allows. In removing these suspended ceilings and partitions, you're creating extra room and volume by going full height and giving significant dilution, as well as a feeling of space for the employees. Imagine if treating the soffit like the sky and designing your perfect outdoor workspace, a little like this example we sprayed in blue. Apart from the outer walls, nothing actually touches the soffit. You might have desks or seating in the open, some enclosed seating areas under cover, and pod-like structures for meeting rooms or enclosed offices. We're seeing this more often, and it really lends itself to complete workspace flexibility. None of this is interfering with what is above, so it can be moved or replaced at any time to suit the current needs of the occupier, who may need to adapt and adapt again in this fast-changing world. The Sonar Spray is also untouched and ready for a change of tenant as well. This is another reason why we're seeing an increase in us spraying entire buildings. Depending on the project, we can spray up to 1,500 square meters per team. We've just completed a 17,000 square meter office building in Glasgow for Gensler and ISG, and had 7 teams working all at the same time. So there's nothing that can acoustically treat a building faster. The savings, not just in the material rate, it's the huge time saving in program as well. So all our products also add value to the property by having great environmental credentials. It's made from recycled paper, but it's treated to achieve Class O and BS1 D0 fire rating. Contributes to BREEAM LEED, SCAR, Living Building Challenge, etc. And the emissions credentials as well. It's M1 classified as a low emitting building material, which is the best you can get. And the California Department of Health, Green Guard Gold, BREEAM's indoor rating, and so on. As well as contributing to many of the Wellbeing standard sections as well. It's actually been used in Well's own building, and of course that was built to the very highest standard of Well as you'd expect, and the product was deliberately chosen to fit with that. So I refer back to some useful pre-COVID JLL data. Green offices are more likely to bring in a rent premium and less likely to sit empty. Buildings with BREEAM Very Good or higher certifications saw a rental premium of 8%. London developments with BREEAM Outstanding or Excellent ratings experienced vacancy rates of just 7% within 24 months, in comparison to those rated Very Good, recorded vacancy rates of 20%. So Oscar Acoustics are also now ISO 14001 certified, which has been really hard work, but well worth it. We've had to make loads of changes, but also it's just helped our client achieve the maximum BREEAM points on their projects. Now, one recent project that's done everything I've spoken about so well is Herbal House. You might have seen this one in the press. Architects T.P. Bennett creating this beautiful Manhattan loft-style office. Working with the contractor BW experts, Oscar Acoustics applied 16 millimeters of Sonospray K13 in a mid-grey colour directly onto the concrete slab throughout the project. You may remember this photo from earlier in the presentation. This is what Herbal House looked like before the application. So yeah, massive difference. Central to achieving their goal of creating a tranquil office ambience was the issue of noise reverberation. It was imperative that the workers could communicate easily without needing to shout, and that staff could work harmoniously without distractions. The client needed to allow for agile ways of working, providing flexible environments that offer focus, work zones, co-working spaces, and relaxed breakout areas. A combination of both impromptu and formal meeting rooms were also required. A library was also installed as a useful resource and social hub. A stunning building, and one worth looking into more if you haven't seen it. There's been some great articles written on it. Now, it's easy to forget that we do a range of 5 finishes, this being the next finish up, Sonospray K13, which is tighter in texture than the one you saw before. And then Sonospray FC was the finest non-troweled finish in the range. And Sonospray FCX is sprayed and troweled to give a beautifully versatile flat and pitted surface, a little like a pre-coloured render, and often appearing as plaster when used with downlights. Oscar Elite completes the range and is the smoothest acoustic plaster on the market, appearing smoother than painted conventional plaster. So we do projects of all shapes and sizes. And to finish up, here's one last pretty photo of our acoustic plaster at Four Seasons, Trinity Square, London. Acoustic consultants on the project, Clark Saunders, said that on the opening night, the acoustics moved the jazz band to tears, and said that they had never heard themselves sound so good. So quite a compliment there. Thank you all very much. Please do follow us on our social media channels or send me a LinkedIn invite. I'm Ben Hancock, to see our projects, blogs, and also the survey results as well.